Fiona, thanks very much indeed for the very latest update there.
Yeah, loads of information to take in there. And as part of the latest sanctions, the EU has banned the broadcast of two Russian media outlets, accusing them of spreading lies to justify the war.
Meanwhile, Russia has been limiting the use of some social media sites in parts of the country.
BBC's Monitoring's Russia editor, Vitaly Shevchenko, joins us now. Good morning. Thank you very much for being with us this morning. Before we get sort of to the more major questions about general monitoring, I just wanted to get an update on your mum. I know she's out in Ukraine. I think she's in the Donetsk region. Is she okay?
Physically, yes. Psychologically, it's a very terrifying time. She's actually in Zaporizhia, which is about 3-4 hours drive west of Donetsk. She called me up at 5 in the morning the other day to say that the whole building is shaking, there are explosions around. That's the last thing you want to hear. And things aren't really going well for them. The whole city is preparing for an attack. I spoke to my classmate last night, and he'd spent 2 days trying to sign up to the territorial defense because the queues are huge. Men are making Molotov cocktails, women are making camouflage nets, and it doesn't look like the Russian troops are welcome in that particular city. And we're talking about Russian speakers. These are the people Putin says he wants to defend, and some of these people, they've never spoken Ukrainian, and now they're chanting glory to Ukraine. It's an amazing sight. Outside of Zaporizhia, there's a town called Dniprorudne, and yesterday, local men, they blocked the road, just a crowd of men across the road, when they saw tanks approaching, Russian tanks approaching. The local mayor approached the tank, and they turned round after talking to the mayor, and there was jubilation and shouts of glory to Ukraine. An amazing sight. And these people, as far as I can tell, they never taken an interest in politics, and Russia and Ukraine didn't really matter to them. And now there's a huge sense of unity and community and purpose among the people I've been talking to in eastern Ukraine.
And while this is all going on in Ukraine, it seems that back in Russia, there's a very different picture being painted from the Russian media there. What is that main message coming across?
It's a parallel reality taken out straight of the psychological operations playbook. They say that Ukraine is overrun with Nazis who oppress the Russian-speaking population, and Russia is trying to free Ukraine from them. As for copious amounts of footage and pictures of damage to civilian infrastructure and civilian casualties, the Russians are saying, don't believe them, not true, fake footage. And President Putin himself, he said a couple of days ago that foreign advisors, particularly from the USA, they are telling Ukrainians to install multiple rocket launch systems inside Ukrainian cities, so they're targeted by the Russians. So the idea is that any civilian death toll, any damage to civilian infrastructure, according to the Russians, A, it either doesn't exist, or B, it's Ukraine's fault. It's a very aggressive and cynical disinformation campaign.
And how effective is that, Vitaly? We're hearing that there has been some hacking of Russian TV channels. I'm not sure what access to social media there is. Some of that is being controlled as well. Is the message of what you've just told us about what is happening in Ukraine, is that getting across to the Russian people?
Well, it's beginning to look like the Kremlin is losing the battle for their hearts and minds, not just across the world, but in Russia itself, because it's taken steps to slow down or restrict access to key social media platforms, because this is how Russians are going to see the losses suffered by the Russian military. We've been seeing lots of pictures of burned Russian tanks, destroyed Russian convoys, dead bodies of Russian soldiers. So I've spoken to my colleague in Moscow this morning, and he says that pictures and videos aren't really loading on Facebook, Twitter, Telegram. But the reality is that if you use tools such as virtual private networks to circumvent the restrictions, those pictures are loading perfectly well. So Russians are seeing the real picture emerging from Ukraine. They are taking to the streets to protest against the war. Yes, last night, almost 2,800 Russians were detained at anti-war protests across Russia. So many more thousands did turn out to protest. And we have to remember that it takes extraordinary courage to turn up for a protest in Russia, because you have to get all sorts of permissions, and if you don't, you get arrested. So that's what's been happening to thousands of Russians for the past 4 nights. And yeah, brave people.
In terms of those media organisations as well, who aren't following those very tight Kremlin rules, what sort of repercussions might come their way?
The government, well, is trying to do all it can to stop them from reporting any footage, any views, any pictures that doesn't really comply with the party line. They've issued instructions saying you only have to report what the government says. The latest news that we had, a website called it's an American website called Real Time. It's been blocked, but it's easy to circumvent the blocks. And of course, many news outlets in Russia have been designated as foreign agents, which puts lots of serious restrictions on their activities. But the reality is that if you're in Russia, if you know the basics of how to use the internet, you can have access to information emerging from Ukraine, and that's what lots of Russians have been doing. So it's not such a tightly controlled media environment as the Russian government would like to.
Vitaly Shevchenko, Russian editor from BBC Monitoring. Really appreciate you coming on and talking to us this morning, and I do hope that your family and friends back in Ukraine are able to stay safe.